So this guy is a staple in movement decks, and I think some people who hate movement decks hate him to bits because he's a nifty little guy and very good at hitting face. But I quite like him. Premium is okay. I like the card because it's very useful, but the art on it could probably do a bit more oomph. Not a huge amount to write home about here. It's okay. It's a little bit boring though, isn't it? Very useful card. I'm not a great fan of the art. It's a little bit dark on this one, but I appreciate it's a very useful card. And last gasp decks are fun, aren't they? Now this is a favourite. When I used to play animal decks, Blighted Weirbat. I always used to play animal decks with the Pilfer support Thieves' Den, and it's just so fun when that bat gets to buff itself, and it used to be my signature move to actually kill people with that bat, so I'd get them down to 2 health and then just pass the turn and it would just finish them off. I always think he looks a bit like, oh, what's the actor's name? It escapes me, but he just looks like... It escapes me, but he looks like a particular actor to me. I think I prefer the standard version. I just think his features are more defined in the standard version. Kind of an auto kill because you don't want your opponent getting both those effects, both the drain and the pilfer. Now some people say this card's unplayable. I have played it on ladder before, and I used to play it in my very early Ebon deck just because it's useful to generate 2 creatures with charge, plus it's quite visually funny. I might have to do that card again as one of our TESL outcasts before the game shuts. But say you cannot lose or something. I can't remember, but you have these 2 little scouts pop out and then with charge. Very fun card, although not often played. This is bloody scary if it goes off. One, it's got big fangs, isn't it? Quite like the art on that. It's like a tiger Khajiit, isn't it? And if it gets paired with Swift Strike, it can get scary really quickly. I think I prefer the non-premium version. That's a little bit distracting. Another staple card. Some people hate the shriek that it makes when it comes out, but it's just such a good finisher for a game. And if you can Galen it, even better. It's okay, the premium, but I don't think it's anything particularly special. This has seen a bit more use on ladder recently. It's nice to see some of the lesser used cards making it a bit of a comeback. Probably because it's, if you play it right, it's immune to actions. The art's not the best on it, in my opinion, but it's a useful card. This one requires a bit of setup. But I have seen it, I generally see it in invade decks when it's been randomly generated if they've done forces. Again, I don't think the premium is anything that special, but each their own in terms of taste. This is one which I think the premium is definitely a massive improvement. Admittedly, I'm very biased, I like the snow effect. I did play against an opponent on ladder who actually I was quite impressed because obviously they made full use of the fact that he gets cover after he attacks. And they had this Blummer thing, they kept putting items on him. And it was getting really big. And I was getting concerned because I thought if they just had a swift strike with it, I think I narrowly won that game. But I was quite concerned because they kept managing to just put more and more items on it, and it would just be half cover each time and that. So I was lucky. I think I eventually drew some silence, but yeah, it's not often used ladder, but I appreciated that somebody did actually put him to good use. And it was quite a scary threat because it just kept getting more and more buff. I always think of this card, rightly or wrongly, as being one of the cards that Sly Boogie popularised in Telvanni, because I never used to... Admittedly, I was a newer player to TESL when I first started. There have been people who've been playing it for years by the time I started playing. But I never used to see Fleet and Apparition in Telvanni until after Sly Boogie had it in his Telvanni build, and then suddenly it's become like a staple of Telvanni, so... I actually think that that's one of his influences on the game. Now here is another one of my favourites. 1, 2, 3 everybody, all together now. Giant snake! Let's say it again. Giant snake! It's become a tradition on my channel to shout out Giant snake when it appears in my hand or when I play it. Where that little tradition came out of is basically my cat Midnight. He likes to pretend he's a scarf. And this is a bit of trivia for you. So many years ago there was an Airwaves advert. Airwaves being a brand of chewing gum where it was supposed to be that you it helped release constriction, and the advert had this man going through a jungle and this big boa constrictor would just land on him, and it was like wrestling him to the ground. He was holding onto it trying to fight it off while it was wrapped around his neck. Well, I like to call Midnight Giant Snake because he likes to go up under my neck like a scarf, so I like to joke that that's a reenactment of that very old advert where the snake jumped down onto the man and then he was like fighting to get it off him. So I kind of like to joke that it's like that. So Midnight is like Giant Snake. So I always say Giant Snake when I get this on ladder, because it's my nickname for Midnight. Bizarre but true. I like this card. Now whether or not I can get a game with the actual animation to go off before TESL closes, I'd quite like to make a note of that. But it's quite funny. I remember the first time I was on ladder and I saw basically this turns up, and when you got a card that you can actually, it just pops up on the, and you see these tentacles wiggling around and it pops back down again. It's quite a funny animation. I remember the first time I saw it I was most bemused. I would quite like to try and get that effect to go off and get it recorded on it's just a very funny animation. Well, I found it funny because it was so bizarre. The first time I saw it, I thought, what on earth was that? What happened? It's only later, when I got the card in my own collection, I realised what it did. This one's quite a difficult one. I do like Spriggans, but this one is quite a difficult one. I've often seen it in monk decks, and I have seen occasionally a person manage to get a huge amount of threat. That's quite a nice premium, isn't it? I have seen people manage to get this quite high when their deck is really full of drain, particularly in monk colours. It's not often used on ladder, but it can be a real threat if you haven't got the silence to deal with it. But that's a lovely effect on the premium. Another staple. The forest is my cloak! I just like the Leaf Lurker, it's such a useful card for removal. I do tend to play this version though. I think the voice is better on the standard version, but I do like the art more on that alt art version. I've not played a Last Gasp, not a full Last Gasp deck. I've played elements of it, but I've not played a full one, so I ought to try and do that before TESL closes. But this guy's very popular in that. I think the standard art, I just prefer that to the premium. This guy gets used a lot in sleigh decks. I've not played him a lot, but the premium is okay. I just don't think the art's especially great on it, but it's a useful effect. Now here is one of my favourites. Obviously, I've got quite a few that I've got a soft spot for. When I was before I had a channel, Schward on his Incarnate channel, he actually, I think I was the first spotlight he did, where he did, when he had the time, he did interviews with people playing TESL, and he'd interview them about how they got into TESL, what their favourite cards were, and like watch people while they're playing and talk to them and ask interview questions. And I think I was the first spotlight. It was during a Grand Melee, and he asked me about my favourite card, and I said, well, if I was a card in TESL, it'd be the Snow Saber Cats. That's kind of my nickname. And if I have a nice win, I always say Kitty got blood on its claws, because it's that's my avatar. If that could be an avatar in TESL, that would be it. So I've got a soft spot for that card. Who was it? I don't know if it was Dareloff or Thin White Duke, but I was watching one of their videos, and somebody managed to get... I think they put an item on this. Now, what was it? Was it the one that makes the health and the power the same? I forget. They put an item on it anyway, and then they got Swift Strike in with it, and like they'd pretty much taken their health off, most of their health off in very quick time, and I just laughed out loud at the inventiveness of somebody doing that. I might have to try and replicate that. Spoils of War is my draw of choice in these colours. I know a lot of people like to use Fresh Start, but I like this because I tend to like decks that are mid-range, and so you've got opportunities to attack as well as fight for the board, so I like this because I can often get it cheap. And it was the Wergonator, one of his videos, back when I was a bit newer. He used to play casual, but he used to use foils a lot as well, so I think I probably wouldn't have even noticed the card if he hadn't played it, and I thought, oh yes, that's a good one, so I started playing it. So it's generally if I'm running it, I'll run a couple, because you can get it down quite cheap. This one doesn't get played a huge amount, but I do know, who was it? Shake It Baby NPO, I remember he used it in a deck to draw, and he made certain the action, I think it was Swift Strike, and he used it to draw Swift Strike, which is quite clever. So it wasn't really a random action, because that's all that he ran to get that. Obviously Grey Fox is a great favourite. In fact, one of my clan mates, let's move on to the premium version. One of my clan mates, they actually changed their name to the Grey Fox, so they became the Grey Fox / friends, and they do tend to like to run thief decks, so it's kind of appropriate. I like both versions of the card. Very, very useful. This makes me laugh. Obviously it's ridiculous because it's a big burly Khajiit, and for 7/5 really scary stat line even before the effect. At one point you never used to see him on ladder. I used to run him occasionally, not that I was particularly into Slay, but I just run him just because it's a good bait for one. I found the card quite funny, just the fact it's a big burly thing and people think, oh my goodness, they've got to deal with it straight away. But he's kind of started being used a bit more in Slay decks, so that's good. But I do quite like the art version of that, from the Frostbark collection, I think. This is quite basically an arena card. It used a lot in Versus Arena. I like it for that. I think it's a bit late in terms of costing. It's a bit. I wouldn't want to choose it over other stuff late game, but it's a very good arena card. Now I love this card. I like Khajiit, so I've used it with great success. Khajiit. I think actually my Here Kitty Kitty Khajiit Telvanni I used on the Grand Melee, and I'd never actually used it in ladder until recently, and then when I used it in ladder it's not lost since... No, I think it's lost one game out of all the games I've played with it. And I started using Bandit in more of my decks that run agility. Never used to get played on ladder. And again, I like to think that my influence has had a small encouragement to people to play this card more, because it started to be used a lot more in the last couple of months on ladder, which I'm pleased to see. Even if it gets played against me, I'm pleased to see it, because it was a card that was pretty much ignored. But it's really good direct face damage, isn't it? She says, what does she do for you? And I can't do the accent, I wish I could, but and then takes free health off your... This is a classy way to finish a game. Fresh Start gets used a lot by other players. I very rarely use it. I prefer Spores of War personally. Now, that's actually quite a nice premium. Look at the light effect on that. And the water as well. I don't really tend to notice, but the light effect on the water is actually really quite nice. There's a nice sort of symmetry to the card as well, so it's definitely much improved in terms of the visual in the premium version. This makes me laugh. It's only ever used really in like solo arena, solo against the AI, or versus arena. It's one of those cards again where your opponent sees it and goes, uh-oh, I better do something about that. I quite like the premium version. He looks a little bit more friendly to me when he's lit up though. That one looks a bit more hostile. I don't often see this on, well, very rarely on ladder, but I have seen it, I think in the past 2 seasons I saw it once. So it was nice that somebody, I think it was someone actually running an a veteran deck in Ebon colours. It was an actual proper veteran deck and they did actually use that. So I appreciated the fact that they were trying to make it a viable card. I like this card again. It's one of those cards that I tend to... I used to play it before, but when I think of this card, I think of Sly Boogie because he has a very good Ebon Slay deck, and I used to call her my lady. So I think of her, I think of him. I think it's one of those cards I associate with him, and it's a good card. It's show me what you got, Sherry, isn't it? And then she makes things, gives set things lethal when they kill stuff. I like Night Prowler. I've used it in my Falmer deck. Let's go on to the premium card because that's so much better. Now look at this. This is a thing of true beauty, that flame effect, isn't it? That really warms my pyromaniac heart. I actually prefer Burglar in the standard version because I think the actual effects of the premium, the art is just more defined there. I just don't feel it's as it looks more faded in that version. That's very nice effect, quite relaxing. But I just think the art stands out more in the standard. So that's one of the cases where I prefer the standard version to the premium. Again, it's quite expensive for what it does. I don't often see it played, normally in arena. It's okay, but it's a little bit dark, isn't it? I like Sails Through Storms. It often gets auto-killed, doesn't it? But if you can pair it with the Khajiit Warhelm, it can be really cool. I have pulled that off a few times. You can just pair it with a Khajiit Warhelm and then you get an instant Pilfer as it hits face automatically. So really cool if you can pull it off, but it does tend to be a high risk. It's quite expensive if it gets removed straight away, which often happens, I'm afraid. But I think I actually prefer the standard art version because I just think that's a little bit distracting, the effect. This is one of my Dragon Stalkers. Sheerpoint, he just tends to turn... I used to joke about him because he tends to turn up in my hand at the start. I'd send him away and he'd come back. He's like... adores me and just will turn up really early and clog my hand for ages, so he's a bit naughty really. But I joke he's one of my Dragon Stalkers. Again, I actually prefer the standard. I think that he's just less defined in this. I mean, the effect's okay, but I think the standard version is nicer than it's more defined, his features, than in that version. Again, I only really see this played in Swindler's decks. That's much nicer, the effect on that, isn't it? I do like it that Soul Rest Marshall recently has had a bit of a revival on ladder. I've seen him a few times in Assassin decks recently. It's just nice to see him getting some love again, because for a long time he wasn't played at all, really. Obviously, I'm fond of Argonians. I've never been able to pull him off myself in terms of getting any benefit from him, though. I remember Javelin, an Aussie player that I used to play a lot of friends with, he actually gave me a Soul Rest Marshall deck. It always worked brilliantly for him, but whenever I had it, I'd always end up behind on health, and I never got to optimise him. I just had to play him without any benefit whatsoever, so it was a bit frustrating. But it's nice to see him when he appears on ladder. And this tends to be an arena card, pretty much. Quite nice, but I'm not a great fan of the art generally. It's a little bit it's okay. Beast Caller, sometimes it gives sort of great value. It can give you something like you might get, what's the word? A Swamp Leviathan, which is an 8/8, so pretty good if you get that. But equally it can give you rubbish. When it calls a Viper, it's really handy, which it has done a few times. I do like some of the Spriggan art. I think that's really nice. It's a real pity there weren't more of these Charis enough to create a tribal deck. It would have been quite fun if there had been. I do like the premium version. It's just a lovely effect on it, isn't it? Not a great fan of the art on this one. It tends to be used... Well, it's a useful card. I know control people tend to use it a lot just to help clear, but I'm not a great fan of the art on it. The premium is a bit better, but it's just not one of my favourites in terms of visual aesthetic. I kind of see this dragon as one of the worst dragons, really. It's okay. Its effect is only gives you one shot. It just feels a bit over costed for the price. And I just think the art's not particularly interesting. And that's a bit better than the standard, but it's nothing special in my opinion. This lady only ever gets played in Versus Arena. It's alright, I'm not a great fan of the art on it really. It's okay, it's just a little bit boring really. Judgment Jim, he tends to get you played a lot. He's been played in, well, pretty much obviously Thief decks, but he's being played a bit more in like Telvanni, particularly Singleton Telvanni, so quite often people will like summon him, they wait till you've got hardly anything in your hand, then they'll summon him, and then they'll resummon him so that you've got no hand, so he's become increasingly popular. A little bit annoying as when your opponent does it, but I think it's fair given the cost of the card. This is one of those cards that I associate with Ross NPO because he... it was before my time when you had Nixox Telvanni on dominating ladder, but he does a Nixox assassin. So I always tend to think of this card because it's one that Ross uses to great effect and has had so many spectacular wins with it. So yeah, just like some cards I tend to associate in my mind with Sly Boogie, I associate this one with Ross really. And also include for agility decks really, Razum. I prefer the standard art on it because I think if you look at the definition, I'll go back in a minute so you can have a look. He just stands out more. He stands out more. He's just better to find in the standard art. Premium, he just seems to blend in a bit more. It's a little bit more insipid. They could have done a bit more with the art on this one. I mean, I do like the golden effect of the sky in the background, but it's almost a little bit too much. It detracts from him. Ring of the Mirror. So this one I've never played. I've been the victim of it a few times. The standard one, it's not done in Telvanni, isn't it? It's when you get stuff out of the graveyard and journey, and then you just get smacked again and again. Not a great fan of the art, but it's a fun card for people when they wanted to go for that type of kill. For some reason it seems less irritating than some of the other one-term kills. I suppose it's harder to do than like Market Archer. It's quite easy for somebody to do, whereas that's quite hard, so I don't mind it as much. Here's Psy, is what used to be one of my early favourites. I remember when I was in the middle tier trying to climb, and at that point I had far from a full collection, and one of the best ways that I learned was seeing what my opponents ran, and Psy would come up a fair bit in that sort of tier, and I was desperate. I remember saving for ages to be able to get enough gems for Psy. I play him less nowadays, but yeah, I remember at one point being really desperate to get a copy of him. Now I love this Spriggan. I know it's quite expensive, but in an animal deck, just the art on that is really beautiful. The colour, the depth, the fluidity, she's very beautiful. And then when you have the premium version, it's quite subtle, but I actually think I prefer the standard version because she just stands out, the markings on her stand out a bit more in that. This is one of the cards that Thin White Duke tends to auto-include without agility, so I tend to think this is... obviously he used it a lot, but also I used to play a lot of games of Rocks and Friends and Rocks and used it a lot. That's actually a really lovely premium. But Rocks used to always get the blooming shackle spiders. I'd be like, I'm about to kill you, and you got these shackle spiders, like they came on his command, so I've got fond memories from playing those games. I actually like the art on this card a lot. I think she's got a very nice outfit going on there, and she just seems to be quite relaxed and chilled, and I just think it's a really nice piece of art. It's okay, the premium. I think I prefer the standard version. Again, it gives a little bit more definition to her. This one, I definitely prefer the standard version to the old art version. I just think she looks a lot nicer in there, and there's more definition. This one's a bit more blending into the surroundings, really. Now this... some people say it's a rubbish card, but it's actually quite good fun. If you can find a way to like silence her so that she doesn't end up having all her little spiderlings die, then it can be quite good actually. But admittedly she's quite expensive for what she is, and the art's not massively good, is it, on there, but it's a fun card to play. Now I've never played Cliff Racer Onslaught. I might have to play it for a laugh before TESL closes. And the art's not massively great on it, but it's just one of those daft cards that'd be quite fun. I suppose it'd be quite good if you had a fair amount of creatures already on board, and then they could like kill the guards that are generated, and then the Cliff Racers just go in. That's the ideal situation, I would imagine. Tassie! I do love Tassie. He sometimes turns up way too early in my hand, but I can forgive him for that because he's just such a good card. He's great fun, isn't he? And he just goes in for the kill, and then you get the if he's not silenced, you get the full force, so he's great value. do really like the premium version. I like both versions, to be fair. I think this is quite atmospheric, this Chowris breeding pit. I do like the art and the colours and the way that the light is on it. I think I prefer the standard version. That's quite a nice effect, but I just think there's more definition in the standard version. It just makes the creature stand out more. Now, this makes me laugh. Hulking Scallan. Or Scallan. I used to play this a lot when I was, I think when I was going from middle tier to top tier before I made Legend. And I used to play him a lot, even though he's quite expensive. And like, it's one of those cards you wait all from a match to get out, isn't it? And he was like a staple in my decks until one day, I think somebody mummified him. They must have been able to silence him and then mummify him. But I was so indignant and so gutted, I felt betrayed. I stopped playing him. But I remember there was a really funny match that Shake It Baby NPO was playing. It was against an Invade player. I don't remember if it was ladder or in an arena or a melee or whatever, but I think he was playing. This card, and he got really good value out of it because I think they got a lethal keyword, so they couldn't do anything with it. And I think he made it a guard at one point, and it was there for several rounds. And I sat there laughing and watched the match. It was just very funny. This Invade player was getting frustrated because he gave it guard, and they couldn't use their actions on it. I do quite like the, I think actually the premium is better. I like the fact he's dribbling, there's the light, there's the water rippling below him. I just think that's very nice and atmospheric. Now on to one of my, I haven't played this for a while, but it's just so fun. I don't know how many of you have done the quest where you have to play a certain number of 10 cost cards in order to get your reward, but I would play this regularly when I was doing that quest, and I was like sat there desperately waiting to be able to play this card to get towards my quest, and then people would always concede before, and I was like, no. So whenever I used to get to play it, I would be so happy. I haven't played the premium. I haven't just crafted the premium today for this video, actually. I haven't played it yet on ladder, but I might have to do a nest video. Yeah, I think it'd be very funny, and I'd quite like to replicate. Remember K Fluffy? He used to pair it with Corsair ship, and it was very funny. And I think I've managed to pull it off once. I'd like to have a go at pulling it off again and getting it on camera, because it was very funny when you have all these vipers hissing and they're all equipped with weapons. It's just a very cool moment, the type of thing that uniquely TESL. So I might try and do that before TESL closes. Ultimate Heist. I haven't really played this card much. I do like, I think because I have a tendency to draw high hands, I always have done, even though I can have a deck with the perfect curve, as advised to me by some of the best in game. I can have a perfect curve and still draw high and then get my cheap stuff at the end. So that's always been the case pretty much for 4 years. So I haven't really used Heist much. I did have it in a deck at one point because Rarkson told me it's good face damage if you can't get to the opponent's face. But the fact is, I never ever managed to get value out of it. So quite a nice premium, the flame effect there. But I've never managed to get value out of it. So but other people, I think, probably have fond memories of it. Okay, so that is all of our agility cards. I hope you enjoyed looking at the beautiful art from TESL. I mean, some cards, the art's better than others, and also the beautiful premiums. I hope you've enjoyed looking at this, and I'd like to hear if you've got any fond memories of cards that you've played in these colours. Put it in the comments below. I'd love to know what your fond memories are, what cards you're fond of, and it's perfectly okay if you like cards that I don't like and vice versa. Let me know what cards you found particularly fun, which ones you really enjoy and wait throughout a match looking forward to playing, and any fun shenanigans that you've managed to pull off with any of these cards. So just let me know in the comments. I'd be delighted to hear how your fond memories. Well, that about wraps it up for today. So I really hope you enjoyed. Until we meet again, may you walk on warm sands.